Love making the same mistake twice.
Founders too, I guess. For me, I think, last journey was a great learning journey.
And I think when things didn't go well the first time around, we were able to have very tough conversations very easily. And it was just done with the utmost sincerity of purpose and handling all stakeholders.
There is a lot of things that come together to make a fantastic credit card experience for travelers. Every month, typically, like I spend talking to about 30-40 folks. I think the first 2-3 months of this journey, I just was doing that. India, only 0.2% of GDP is spent on travel. People want to explore new destinations. People want to spend that gap year maybe. People want to just learn a lot, absorb new cultures. I think the next 20 years, India is going to see a lot of time and money being spent on things that people value. This instrument, this card that allows them to go places in many ways, figuratively and actually really, will help them do all of this stuff.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Matrix Moments. Super exciting and special episode for me. I have with me Anil Goteti, founder of Scapia. We've been privileged to back Anil again in this startup. I think we've been in partnership in Scapia for what, a year and a half now?
About a year. Yeah.
So this is really the coming out party, coming out from stealth mode. So privileged that he's doing that with us. Quick introduction to Anil. He grew up all over India, then went to the US through his time at Kellogg and UIUC and Qualcomm, traveled a bunch and a bit of a travel fiend, and we'll come back to sort of how that's played a role in the formation of this. He spent 9 formative years at Flipkart, pretty much building different parts of it, and that's how we got to know each other. So welcome, Anil.
Thank you, Vikram. Great to be here, and I think it's fantastic to be having this conversation again after, I don't know, probably close to a couple of years, but building a fun company and a fun product, so looking forward to talking more. Yeah.
The number one question that I get asked is, you guys partnered once, didn't go as well, you're doing it again, why? And I'll answer that question, but I'd love for you to go
I was going to
first.
ask you, you should probably answering that question, but...
VCs love making the same mistake twice.
Founders too, I guess. No, for me, I think, the last journey was a great learning journey. I would say, it is one of those things where you have to play on the field. You'll make a few mistakes, but through those mistakes is when you learn. I mean, just like every child does, every adult does, every founder does, every VC does, I'm sure. So for me, it actually laid a foundation. And what was important to me after the last company shutdown was to work with people that have backed me through thick and thin, right? These are long journeys. These are not 1-2 year journeys. You probably backed your companies for, 7 years, 10 years, right? I'm looking to work with people through this journey over a decade, right? Or more. So it is important for me to be on the same wavelength with those people, have that connect, have that comfort, backing that we are going to be with each other through thick and thin. So, things were rough the last time, but I think both of us handled it quite maturely, right? Both of us knew that it was actually a moment in time which needed a certain situation that needed certain handling, and that the way it was handled, the way it was set up, actually gave me the conviction that I'm going to work with all of these people again if they are keen. So it was a matter of principle to me, and I did say a lot of no to others because I wanted to work with the people who had worked with me before.
Yeah.
And you guys all got the first right of refusal. So that's how it happened.
And the answer to if they are keen was that we were very keen. And it was essentially what Anil said. The great partnerships are tested when things don't go well. And I think when things didn't go well the first time around, we were able to have very tough conversations very easily. And it was just done with the utmost sincerity of purpose and handling all stakeholders, their pain points beautifully, and at sometimes with personal cost, both time and financial. And most founders don't do this. And because that journey of actually a graceful shutdown was so well handled, we just wanted to back you again. And the second thing is that you are also now compounding on your consumer insights and your consumer love and your own personal pain point. That made us even more excited. We would have backed you again regardless of the idea, but the fact that you were sort of playing in your wheelhouse made us even more excited about doing it. So that's a good transition to what is the wheelhouse, what are you doing, what is Scapia, how did this journey sort of come about?
I think,
and I keep saying Scapia, sorry.
Yeah, it is Scapia. It's the root is escape. It's I'll tell you what the product is and why there's a root on escape. But we wanted to add an R in the end because good brands end in R. I have this random thesis which I guess I believe in, but that's how the brand came about. The domain was also available. See, we are building a credit card for travelers. We are all travelers. I'm a traveler. I don't know how many people know, but I've been traveling for the last 20 years. I've been to more than 33 countries. I've done road trips across the US, across India. Once I've driven all the way from New York to San Francisco. One of my dream road trips is to do a London to Bangalore road trip. I don't know when I'll do it, but it has been on my radar. After the previous company shut down, I took a bit of a pause. I didn't want to rush into anything, and I started working on the house, doing other things, spending time with children. But just like I guess most entrepreneurs do or founders do, I started getting jittery in 2 months. I thought I'll give 12 months to myself, but it never happened. Now I wish I did give that time, but sometimes, you just let things flow, right? And after 2-3 months, I was getting jittery and I started thinking about ideas. I just started thinking about what do I do next? What am I passionate about? Like you said, I wanted to get back into what my comfort zone of B2C was.
And just double click a little bit on that. I think the first idea, the first startup was actually in SaaS.
Yeah.
And one of the epiphanies was to compound on sort of things that you know.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that journey.
See, as founders, we all grapple with a lot of things, right? We grapple with, multiple problems. And you want to maximize your chances of success. So in my reflection period, actually, when I took some time off, I actually have a note to myself on what are the things that I learned, what are the things that I will do, what are the things that I will not do. One of the things that I wanted to do was actually build a B2C company, focused on India, focused on things that I believe that I know very well, the network and connections that we have actually built, and use that for compounding, right? That's what you want to do, right? And in that reflection, I was thinking of all the things that Indians are going to spend in the next 10, 20 years. Like, I moved back to India from the US in 2011 when very few people were moving back because I believed in the India journey. I believe that the next 20, 30 years are going to belong to India, and it's a reflection of how our GDP is growing, our growth rate, everything. Like, during the entire 2010 to 20 period, internet penetration just went through the roof. I think the next 20 years, India is going to see a lot of time and money being spent on things that people value on. And I was looking at what are all the things that people spend on when they have disposable income. Two things came out for me. One was retail, and the other one was travel. I just happened to spend a lot of time in retail, and I just wanted to take a break. Not that I don't like it or I'm not passionate, but I just wanted to take a little bit of break from it. Travel is something that just was passionate to me. I never thought I'll build a business associated with travel. I've been a traveler for 20 years. I've traveled to many places. I've, done hikes. I've actually taken adventures. I've taken road trips. Everybody is a traveler. Everybody has different degrees of travel. But I was double clicking on what travel could look like, and like India, only 0.2% of GDP is spent on travel. If you looked at the research, like in US and China, it's almost 1% of GDP is spent on travel. So I started going deep on travel. I was like, let me talk to youngsters, let me talk to millennials who are traveling. There were a lot of insights that came about.
How many travelers would you have talked to at that period?
Every month, typically, like, I spent talking to about 30-40 folks. I think the first 2-3 months of this journey, I just was doing that, right? And the idea kept changing. The first idea was, let me build an OTA. Okay, but I just, because I think there's an OTA to be built with the kind of experience that millennials are looking for, right? They're looking for immersive experiences. They're looking for offbeat destinations. They want the content to suit that. They want a lot of transparency. They want very good customer service. There were a lot of that insights that came about. But what was also interesting is when people travel, there are some unique needs, right? And that was actually the epiphany when I was interviewing people. There is a lack of transparency when people go abroad. There is like the need for a financial instrument to be able to use it. Some of them take currency, some of them take like a forex card, but there's a lot of hurdles and friction. And I was thinking I'll actually build a forex debit card. And I went with the thesis and I interviewed a whole bunch of users. 9 out of 10 said, I want to use my credit card. But what they lack is actually a transparency in using the card. They get a statement after 40 days. They don't know what the forex is. There's a markup. There's a little bit of like that, I want to use it, but I cannot. So I have to figure out other instruments. And that was really like the epiphany moment for me. It was like, there is a big need for a card that serves travelers. Forex is just one piece of it. But if I look at the entire gamut of what a card would look like for travelers, there's so much to offer. And I've been privileged and lucky to be in the US where I experienced some of these cards like the Capital One cards and the Amex cards, where there's rich rewards. At that time, at least, they were delightful. And, I think over time, technology in India has actually far exceeded what is there. But there is a lot of things that come together to make a fantastic credit card experience for travelers. And that's a daily use case product, right? It's something that everybody uses every day across various things. And you travel twice or thrice a year. And when you do that, you have a whole bunch of points that you can actually redeem. And I've been, using cards like this, which actually give me free travel and make my life a lot more delightful. I was like, there is a unique product to be built in India just for this. The India is going to go through a rise where disposable income is going to increase. Millennials are going to travel a lot. Credit card penetration is very, very low. And there are a lot of tailwinds. And COVID was ending. Travel is going to come through the roof. I was like, this is it.
And one of the things you just said, right, it's confident travelers who are upwardly mobile, but who are also making stretch decisions when they travel, and they want that credit for those stretch decisions. And that actually led you to this.
And I'll tell you a story. I say this to some of the people that I try to pull into the company. Buy now, pay later, and all of these things are more popular as a term over the last 4-5 years. When I graduated with from my master's in 2004. I had a job that was, the starting date was September. In May, I called my father and I said, I need a loan. And he said, what for? I said, I need to travel. He said, where are you going to travel? I said, I'm living in the US now. I need to take a round trip from Chicago to Paris. And then I'm going to do a 17-day backpacking trip all over Europe, covering multiple destinations. And I borrowed $2,000 from him. And he said, when are you going to return it? I said, as soon as I get my first salary. So he said, okay, fine. He was generous enough to give me that money. But I still remember that trip to this date. Every day I did a full trip. And I think that was 20 years ago, okay, when solo trips were not so famous. Now everybody talks about solo trips. It was a solo trip that I did across Europe with, I stretched myself. I took that credit. And I see people doing that now. People are taking solo trips, people are taking credit, people want to explore new destinations, people want to spend that gap year maybe, people want to just learn a lot, absorb new cultures. And I think this instrument, this card that allows them to go places in many ways, figuratively and actually really, will help them do all of this stuff.
You should definitely get some royalties for that travel now, pay later to your dad. So,
actually I should. I don't think he remembers this story. Now if I remind him, he will. But he did offer that money. With my first salary, I did two things. I paid him that, and again I stressed myself and I bought a music system which has been in my house for the last 20 years. So
That's the next idea.
maybe.
So this seems like a travel company plus fintech. That's like a lot. That's two
Yeah.
companies in one.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about is this too much to chew on? How did you think about grappling with sort of both sides of this problem?
Yeah, I don't think of it as too much to chew on. I think, the way I've been thinking about it and operating is, this is the product that we need to do, right? This is the real customer need. If we have to solve this problem statement of building a card for travelers, there are multiple components. One is the credit card itself, which is actually a big company. Like, you need to build an entire credit card working with banks and being able to show the customers transactions real time. It's a shame that in the country right now that people have to use a third-party app to be able to pay their bills. But ensuring that the entire experience is fantastic is important, right? So that's one whole product to be built for credit cards. Then, as you use the card, you need to be able to build loyalty and coins and being able to give them that rewards, right? Which is again an entire product by itself. It's probably not an entire company, but thankfully I've had the experience of running Flipkart Super Coins at scale. So I've seen some of the stuff. So there's a lot of comfort in being able to deal with that and do that. Then I wanted to make sure that people are able to use the coins and actually redeem them for travel. So if I have to do that, there are obviously choices. Do I want to partner with travel companies and just build an affiliate one? Or solve it differently and build the entire experience ground up? From day one, it was very clear to me, I wanted to invest in that experience. Because there is an experience that is actually unique where you redeem, but at the same time personalize it for that user, let them experience those offbeat destinations, show it in the way it's delightful for them. For me, it was this problem had to be solved a certain way, and I was like, if you think about the complexity and how daunting it is, then you will stop yourself. Like founders and entrepreneurs don't work with the risk of failure, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen so many entrepreneurs.
But I love the fact that firstly, I just want to call out for all of our viewers that there's this user deep dive that you did, and from that immersive user deep dive, these pain points emerged. And then this thing about not limiting yourself to, okay, this is how I typecast this company, whether it's travel, whether it's fintech, and just say, I'm going to just solve the user's problem in a very different way. And that's where sort of magical products and companies are created.
Yeah, and like for the first 3 months, we were not building anything. The entire team was actually doing two things. We were actually just doing user interviews, and we were just learning from the user interviews. This was like the January to March time period of last year. And they were investing in training and upgrading themselves on all new technologies. Like, we built this entire product on something called Flutter. Now Flutter is picked up a lot. Everybody was doing things in React Native and building two apps, two types of. But people invested in learning new things that would actually help the company longer term. Now my Android and iOS come out at the same time. Like somebody would think like for 2-3 months, the company was just doing this without building anything. Yeah, it was a bold call, but you know what, it paid off.
So this product seems perfect for everyone at Matrix, because half the time they're all traveling or figuring out their next holiday. Nobody's working, but even if they are, they're dreaming about their next holiday.
Yeah.
So what is the product? What is the experience that you want the users to go on?
There are few things that actually make the product very unique, right? It's a credit card. It's a credit card built for travelers, right? And everybody, like you said, everybody is a traveler. It's not just Matrix, right? Everybody is having a life which is actually very busy. Everybody wants to take a break, and the travel is the break, right? You really have fun with your family or your friends, you bond with them, you experience new things, those become memories. You come back and then you have stories to tell, to your colleagues and your friends. Everybody asks you, how was your trip? And then you look forward to those stories, and then you start thinking about the next trip. So everybody is a traveler, and in our user insights, 2-3 things became very, very clear. One is, everybody wants a card that actually gives them unique rewards, and a card is a statement. You want to be able to use it, you want to be able to say that this is a card that is specially made for me. I like using it. It has a certain set of features that I really associate with, right? I relate to, right? Everybody wants a lot of rich travel rewards. So we've built in very rich rewards that would be very meaningful for travelers, right? With very high reward earning rates, with seamless redemption on our app, right? And being able to do that with not just the value of it, but also more importantly, how they travel. We have like travel now, pay later built in with a book through us. We have, ability to lounge in various airports. We have, zero-forex built in. Things that are actually uniquely thought through for travelers that make it very, very good. Second piece of it, which is how the product is, right? It's not just the features and the rewards, but the touch and feel of it, right? Whether it's the physical card, whether it's the unboxing, whether it is the, how the app looks, how your redemption looks. I think this is a good segue for me to like show what the product is. This is how the product will get unboxed. You can see how there's an 18th century animation. It's going places, right? People, we've thought through the minutest of details as to how people will enjoy using this product as they get it, right? And our design team has actually spent a lot of time.
I know you spent a lot of time on that color as well. So
yeah, it's the Scapia sunset color, as we call it, and this is how the card will look, right? You open the card, and there are two versions of it, the male and the female, and we also have a gender neutral version for people who want to get a third version, right? And this is a unique color. It's made for a traveler, as you can see how it's designed. Like the color is unique, the card is unique. It's those tiny things that matter, right?
Yeah.
You need to be able to use it and appreciate it, and like once you use it, there's no going back. That's how I think about it. And we spend a lot of time doing these things, but they matter. They matter to the user. It matters to us. It matters to all the travelers, and this is what brings delight. Because otherwise, you'll be just one among many. Yeah.
It's clear that this is a labor of love, and I also know that you're the first tester. I know you did this trip to Scotland where I think you probably drove the team back at home nuts while you were using this card all over the place.
Actually, it was just fine. It was maybe 10-15 days into the beta phase, so a lot of the bugs were ironed out. I was very happy to use it across all the POS machines. I wanted to test whether zero-forex was working. So I was actually in the Amsterdam airport. I had a long layover. It was supposed to be a 2-hour layover, but it ended up being 5-hour layover. I was like, first international transaction. We had already done a lot of domestic transactions, but first international transaction, let me go try it. I bought some coffee for myself with some croissant and all the stuff.
Yeah.
Like some of these first transactions are getting framed in our office. Nice. Just for posterity. But the first thing I did was check the charge. I opened the currency converter. I was like, matches to the rupee. But see, typically people wait 45 days to see this.
Yeah.
Like we are showing it right then and there. Like this many euros, this many rupees, this is the currency conversion. Like that's the level of transparency. That's the ethos with which you're building the company, right? I think there are a bunch of values that we have, but from day one of the things that we have invested in and we want to build a company with is transparency. Transparency for the customers, transparency for the team within, transparency for everybody. What you see is what you get with us, right? In fact, we are talking about the most important terms and conditions on the app, on the website. What is the card about? It's also about being responsible as a company to do, I would say, financial education for the country, right? I mean, we have very low credit card penetration. We are not like a very mature credit market where everybody knows what a credit card is about. There are a bunch of things that, make the product tick, right? There are the rewards of it, obviously, which everybody knows about, but sometimes it's money, right? You don't pay the money on time, then there is, interest charges, there is, fees associated, and you have to be a responsible product and a company to be able to educate the users about. Yeah. And I think RBI has done, for example, a fantastic thing last year where they issued a whole bunch of regulations to make it very friendly for the user. We have been doing that even before the new regulations, where we decided as a company that we want to be customer first. And in fact, one of the things that came out in the research was that we will educate the users and they don't know a whole bunch of these things. So you see that fully. And that transparency is what actually leads us to a whole bunch of these features.
So it's clear you're bringing a very fresh take on user experience, and coming from the consumer universe, you're sort of over investing on that, and it's like I said, it's a clear labor of love. Talk about the fintech side of this company. With RBI's guidelines and so on. You know, how you've been looking at bank partnerships. What does it take? What advice would you have for sort of consumer first founders trying to build in a fintech world?
See, I think whatever it is, you have to accept the fact that this is a highly regulated space, right? And for a reason, right? It is, you're dealing with money, right? You're dealing with people's money, and you have to do what is right with the boundaries and constraints set by the external ecosystem. And there are a certain set of reasons, and highly experienced folks who have thought through this and know what are the ups and downs of actually allowing some things and not allowing things. So your playing field is actually those regulations, right? So you have to first deeply understand them, right? Actually, I spent a lot of time just reading the regulations, right? I just was going through what all is required, right? I had a choice whether I wanted to do a proper co-branded credit card, or at that time the market was actually doing a lot of prepaid cards. And this was before regulations, the new regulations which came in April last year. And it was very clear to me from a customer perspective, I should not be doing a prepaid card because the prepaid card has some limitations. That there's a cap on how much money you can do, what transaction. Also, you know, it's confusing for the user, right? It's a prepaid, it's not a credit, all of this stuff. So I wanted to do a co-brand card from day one. So understanding the regulations, seeing what the regulator is doing, and investing in it from day one actually becomes a moat for you longer term. More importantly, you do right by everybody in the ecosystem.
And just pausing you there, two things. One, the immersion in financial services, not coming from that universe, and just saying that I have to live this journey is super important, and that made you make some choices. And some of those choices meant delay, and you just said this is actually the right answer for the long term, and you just invested in all those things, even if it meant short term delay.
And I don't look at them as delay. I look at them as these are things that you need to do to get it out. Like I have invested in a compliance dashboard within the company from day one. We actually have a real-time compliance dashboard where every day I know whether I'm compliant or not. And if something is not going to be compliant in the future, I get an alert beforehand. And we work with the team to make sure that, you know, we don't get into the territory. Right? So it is that, and there are experts who help you with this, right? There are a whole bunch of people in the external ecosystem who actually guide you, help you. There are a lot of people who are willing to help. You have to make that investment. There's no, and that gives your stakeholders comfort, right? We are not a bank. We have to work with a bank who is actually willing to be a co-brand partner. And you have to find somebody who's got the right wavelength, who has that cultural values. And you have to see, you know, there are a certain bunch of things that are important to them because they are answerable to the RBI. And we work with that. And the way I see it is, we are equally, you know, invested in this from a compliance perspective, and we make sure we do all of this stuff. Only then product will come out. Otherwise, no.
Talk about the risk. You're now suddenly, I know you used to dealing with a lot of GMV. But here it is, you know, your money, you're putting it up in terms of lending. And all of this. How did you sort of get your arms around that problem?
Well, it's we are not lending on the card. The bank is, right, and only banks can do that. So there's from that aspect of risk, no. But see, I think we have to be very, very careful about risk and being informed about what we are doing and what we are not doing. I think there are two aspects of it. The financial risk of the company, what we are doing, all this stuff. As entrepreneurs, I don't think of it that way, right? We have to think about the vision, what we are building. Like when you're aspiring to be in the Indian cricket team, and let's say you're good at it and you're trying to get into the playing 11, you shouldn't be thinking about whether I'll be failing at that point. You should be thinking about how do I get into the playing 11, right? So as entrepreneurs, I have never thought about the risk of failure of the company.
That's startup risk.
It's a startup risk. I mean, I don't even think about it.
Thinking more of the risk in the transactions. I mean, credit cards.
So that's all. See, that is all risk which is borne by the bank, and that is where the bank's expertise comes in, right? we are a partner, a co-brand partner to be able to distribute, to be able to market the product. We give the great experience. We give all the travel redemption and the rewards and all this stuff. This is where the experience and the responsibility of the bank comes in. They have done this, for many years. That's why they have a bank license, right? So we learn from them. They actually underwrite the risk. They issue the card from their balance sheets. We are helping and partnering with them to build the entire gamut product and everything together. And we learn from them. They learn from us on other things, and that's how the partnerships work. And we are equal partners in those.
And just quickly, just from our perspective, when I just think about this journey and how it has actually, now when I hindsight, it fits completely with that thesis, by the way. So, but that's not how we started. And we believe in this coupling transactions plus the financial margin in the transaction. We've done that in companies like Off Business, Auto, and so on. I never thought when we started on this journey that that's what we will end up discovering, right? Where you have essentially taken the travel transaction and coupled it with the financial margin in that transaction, and you're actually passing a lot of that back in terms of rewards.
And that's how you make it work.
And then you make it work. But you essentially sort of increase the revenue pool and sharing that revenue pool with users.
And that's the business side of things, right? But all of this originates from the consumer. If you know that, and talk to the consumers, and the consumers say that, what, this is what I want. This is my expectation, right? And thankfully, I have been a customer here myself. So I can relate to it as well as to what do I want, right? Then you work backwards, and, with a little bit of experience, having done this at scale, having seen, some of the pitfalls, then you work backward and say, how do I make this a sustainable firm? And you asked me this earlier saying, isn't it daunting to build 2 of these inside? But you know what? Unless you build those, you can't do this. So for the customer, right? So that's the comfort I have, that I've been able to build that and be able to pass it back.
Is there anything we didn't cover on how you're building the company and so on? I know you've also built a fantastic team and culture.
That's a separate journey by itself, and I can spend maybe more time on that. But I'll tell you, there have been a lot of learnings, and touch wood, I've always had great teams working with me, whether it was at Flipkart, and there it was all the entire ecosystem, but also at the previous startup, right? But this time, I was even more deliberate, right? And on Flipkart, I must have done like 2,000, 3,000 interviews, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm just the growth of the company and how many people I've interviewed over the years. I must have done that many, but during my previous startup, I was still operating with some of that mindset. That, people will come to me, there's a power of a brand like Flipkart which attracts a lot of talent. When you start your own companies, when you realize this is one of those founder aha moments, like, you're back to ground zero. You're not like sitting in 15th floor of some building. That people are afraid, like, what is this startup? What is this idea? Will it all succeed? I mean, different people have different exposures of risk and ability to jump in on an early stage idea, which is on paper, right? Thesis will evolve, right? Products will evolve. Touch wood, for me, I have stayed with this, and I actually believe in this, and, this is what we are going to be on. But on day zero, everybody will not get that comfort. As a founder, you have the vision and comfort. You have to be able to get people to believe. I have been very deliberate in.
So who's been your toughest convert, and what did you have to do? And you don't take names, but I know families play a big role in the conversion and so on.
See, what I was coming to was that now I'm able to assess who is a little bit more of an early stage person versus a late stage person. So I can tell pretty much based on the first conversation what is like the risk appetite. In fact, a lot of people I don't also pitch at this point. Like, I also tell them, have you thought about a startup? And do you know what are the risks that it entails? I actually do a failure pitch. I like, this is what it could all do to you and your family. Are you okay with all of this stuff? Then even after all of that stuff they are in, then I know that they're really in. Then it becomes the product and the passion for it, all of that stuff. So there's, one gentleman I've had to see. A lot of the hiring that I've done actually has been through phone calls. I've been in stealth for 14, 15 months. And when you don't have any presence on LinkedIn or anywhere else, your phone book is your real network. It's the network that you have, right? So everybody, and I've also realized the people that you know, the people who have comfort with you, those are the people who are early joiners, right? Those are the people that actually believe in you as a founder, believe in the product, believe in the idea. You have a comfort of working with each other. It works both ways, right? I wanted to invest in, bringing someone from the credit card space and someone who's been doing this for 10, 15 years. I had to chase that gentleman down, 4 dinners in Bombay, but yeah, that's what it takes. Yeah.
Before we wind up on the podcast, one of the things that's been a privilege and beautiful to watch for me is that you started the first company at the beginning of that bubble cycle.
Probably the biggest bubble in the last couple of decades.
In 21. And then, at the peak of the bubble, you were actually winding down that company, and there was some sort of FOMO on not being able to take advantage of some of that liquidity environment and so on. And then you started this at the fag end of that, and then it has been pretty
the biggest bear market I've seen in the last 20 years.
Cool markets for now. But through all of these ups and downs, you've sort of been steady, right? Tech guidelines changing and all of that. So firstly, where does that come from, that piece? And I know you've seen cycles before in Flipkart as well, but where does it come from? And second, what is your advice to founders who are going through these ups and downs?
I am quite thankful for what's happening. I mean, it's a little bit of an overcorrection, but markets go up and down, things go up and down, right? I'm not building this for the next 1-2 years, right? I want to spend my, next few decades on this, right? When you think very, very long term, short term is just short term, right? Yeah. So obviously there are nuances to it. Obviously there are external repercussions, and as long as you're balanced about what's happening outside, right? Obviously, as a founder, I'm not going to lie, there's going to be FOMO when there's like the whole bull market happening, and every 2 days there's a press article about somebody raising, and you're like, are you raising fast enough? Is something wrong with you? Like, when there's a bear market going on, obviously, there's layoffs everywhere, right? Yeah. And you tend to look at it and say, okay, you know what, I need to be more careful, right? Because it's not about you alone, it's about how the market operates, it's about how the external environment operates. It's like LPs have to invest in funds and funds have to invest in the companies. There's a cycle to it, and you have to respect the cycle and you have to respect the environment. But those are just the nuances of operating in the short term. But you focus on what you need to do longer term, and you're looking to build a sustainable company which actually solves a particular customer problem that you're very confident of. And obviously customers will tell you what is success and what is failure. Money will follow. Money will follow, people will follow, employees will follow, everything. I mean, they'll all come together. Yeah. And you have to do your due diligence and make all of that stuff happen, and you have to build a certain culture, you have to build a certain transparency, you have to build, a certain quality of product, certain quality of customer experience. And there's going to be ups and downs, you have to deal with it.
I know you're saying things very first principles and in a matter of fact way, but it's easier said than done.
It is easier said than done. And of course, I grapple with it, but you have to deal with it. You have chosen this life. You have become a founder. You have to deal with it. I'm sure VCs you deal with it. Deal with it. Deal with it like all problems. Yeah.
But I think you've just taken it one day at a time. And one of the things you said, right, you've sort of insulated the org as well from all of the noise and kept them focused on the mission.
Yeah.
So it's been like I said, it's been a privilege to watch. I'm really looking forward to getting my Scapia card.
Yeah.
And so Godspeed for the launch.
Yeah, and for your trip coming soon. Yeah.
I really want it before Friday.
Yeah.
If I can get it. So Godspeed for the launch. Any closing thoughts from you?
No, I think it's been a privilege to partner with Matrix. I think for me this relationship started even before the previous company, right? Both of us have, I would say in a way, got to know each other, invested the time to get to know each other, right? Only when you get to know people and spend the time is when you get the confidence to work with each other. And it works both ways for a VC and a founder, right? So for me, it's not just been this journey, it's been, that foundation we laid for many years. It's been a privilege and looking forward to partnering for many more years.
Really looking forward to this journey with Scapia. And like I said, Godspeed for the launch. Thank you for tuning in for this episode of Matrix Moments. Look forward to seeing you soon.